Hello, everyone. My name is Anna. Welcome to my podcast. Today, I want to talk about cultural differences. This is a very interesting topic. It is important for people who learn English and meet people from different countries. Culture means how people live. It includes food, language, habits, and traditions. Every country has a different culture. Even small things can be different. For example, in some countries, people greet with a handshake. In other countries, people bow or hug. This can feel strange at first, but it is normal for them. Also, time is different in cultures. In some countries, people are always on time. In other countries, people are more relaxed about time. They may come later, and it is okay. Food is also very different. Some people eat rice every day.
Some people eat bread.
Some people use chopsticks. Others use forks and knives. When we understand cultural differences, we can respect other people more. We do not judge them. We try to learn from them. Today, we continue talking about cultural differences. I want to explain more examples from real life so you can understand this topic better. Let's talk about communication. In some countries, people speak very directly. They say exactly what they think. For example, "I don't like this." It is normal and not rude for them. But in other countries, people are more indirect. They try to be polite and soft. They may say, "Maybe this is not the best idea." Both ways are okay, but they're different. This can cause misunderstandings. A person from a direct culture may think the indirect person is not honest, and the indirect person may think the direct person is rude. But actually, they just have different communication styles. Another important thing is personal space. In some cultures, people stand close when they talk. In other cultures, people like more space. If you stand too close, it can feel uncomfortable for them. If you stand too far, it can feel cold or unfriendly. Let's talk about eye contact. In some countries, looking into someone's eyes is a sign of respect and honesty. In other countries, too much eye contact can feel aggressive or rude, so people avoid it. There is also body language. For example, in some places, showing thumbs up means good job. But in other countries, the same gesture can mean something different or even offensive. That is why we must be careful with gestures. Now I want to talk about traditions and holidays. Every culture has special days. Some people celebrate Christmas, some celebrate Lunar New Year, some celebrate Diwali, and many others. The food, music, and clothes are different during these holidays. It is very beautiful to see. When we travel or meet new people, we should be open-minded. It means we try to understand before we judge. We ask questions instead of making quick opinions. Cultural differences are not a problem. They are something we can learn from. They make the world more interesting. I want to talk about education, work, and daily habits in different countries. First, let's talk about school and learning. In some countries, students are very quiet in class. They listen to the teacher and do not speak much. The teacher is the main person who talks. In other countries, students ask many questions. They give opinions and talk freely. Both styles are normal, but they feel very different. Also, homework is different. In some places, students have a lot of homework every day. In other places, there is less homework, but more group work or projects. Students learn in different ways, but the goal is the same: to learn and improve. Now, let's talk about work culture. In some countries, work is very formal. People dress in suits and follow strict rules. Meetings are serious and planned. In other countries, work is more relaxed. People may dress casually and speak more freely with their boss. Also, in some cultures, people work long hours and stay late at the office. In other cultures, people really care about free time and work-life balance. They leave work on time and spend more time with family. Another interesting thing is decision making. In some companies, the boss decides everything. In other places, workers discuss together and make group decisions. This can feel very different for people from other cultures. Now, let's talk about daily habits. Even simple things are not the same everywhere. For example, in some countries, people eat dinner very late, maybe at 9 or 10 p.m. In other countries, people eat much earlier, like 5 or 6 p.m. Shopping habits are also different. In some places, people buy fresh food every day from small shops or markets. In other places, people go to big supermarkets once a week. Even greetings at work can be different. Some people say hello and shake hands every morning. Others just smile or say nothing and start working. When we understand these differences, we do not feel confused or uncomfortable. We understand that normal is different for everyone. It is important to stay curious. Ask questions like, how do people do this in your country? Most people are happy to explain their culture. Cultural differences are not good or bad. They are just different ways of living. I want to continue talking about cultural differences, but now I will focus on manners, rules, and social behavior in everyday life. Let's start with manners at the table. In some countries, it is normal to eat with your hands. In other countries, people always use forks, knives, or chopsticks. Sometimes it is even rude to use your hands. For example, in some cultures, bread is the only food you can touch with your hands during a meal. Also, in some places, people talk a lot during dinner. They laugh, share stories, and eat slowly. In other cultures, eating is quiet and more focused on the food. Talking too much at the table can be seen as impolite. Now, let's talk about punctuality again, but in social life. If you invite someone to your house, time can mean different things. In some cultures, arriving late is rude. You must come exactly on time. In other cultures, arriving 15 to 30 minutes late is normal and expected. Another important topic is gift giving. In many cultures, people bring a small gift when they visit someone's home. It can be flowers, sweets, or drinks. But even gifts have rules. For example, in some countries, giving sharp objects like knives is considered bad luck. In other places, certain numbers or colors are important and can have meaning. Let's talk about politeness words. In English, we often say please, thank you, and sorry. But in other languages and cultures, people may use these words more or less often. This can sometimes cause misunderstanding. A person might think someone is rude, but actually it is just a different style of communication. Now I want to explain something very important: humor. Jokes are not the same in every culture. Something funny in one country may not be funny in another. Sometimes jokes can even be misunderstood. That is why we must be careful with humor, especially when we don't know people well. Another difference is rules in public places. For example, in some countries, speaking loudly on public transport is normal. In other countries, people stay very quiet on buses and trains. Even using a phone loudly can be seen as disrespectful. We also have differences in waiting in lines. In many countries, People wait in an organized line and do not push. But in some places, the system is more flexible and people may try to move ahead. This can feel strange if you are not used to it. All these small things show us something very important. Culture is not only big traditions, it is also everyday behavior. If we travel or live in another country, we should observe first. We watch how people behave and try to adapt. This helps us avoid mistakes and feel more comfortable. Cultural differences can be confusing, but they also help us grow. They teach us patience and respect. Today, I want to talk about emotions, relationships, and social behavior in different cultures. These things are very important because they affect how people understand each other every day. First, let's talk about showing emotions. In some cultures, people show their feelings very openly. They laugh loudly, cry in public, and express anger or happiness without hiding it. In other cultures, people are more quiet with emotions. They try to stay calm and control how they look in front of others. This can create misunderstandings. A person from an expressive culture may think a quiet person is cold or not friendly, but actually that person just shows emotions in a different way. Now, let's talk about friendship. In some countries, people make friends very quickly. They talk openly, share personal stories, and call each other friends after a short time. In other cultures, friendship takes a long time. People need to build trust slowly before they become close. So sometimes one person thinks they are already close friends, but the other person still thinks they're just acquaintances. This is very common in intercultural communication. Another topic is physical contact. In some cultures, hugging, touching the arm, or patting the shoulder is normal between friends. In other cultures, people avoid physical contact, especially with people they do not know well. Personal space is very important there. Let's also talk about respect for older people. In many cultures, older people are treated with a lot of respect. People listen carefully to them, give them special seats, or use formal language. In other cultures, age is less important and people treat everyone more equally, no matter how old they are. Now I want to explain something interesting about conflict and disagreement. In some cultures, people do not like direct conflict. They avoid arguing and try to keep peace. They may stay quiet even if they disagree. In other cultures, people are more open. They discuss problems directly and say what they think clearly. Neither style is wrong. They are just different ways of handling situations. Another important difference is smiling and facial expressions. In some countries, people smile often, even at strangers. In other countries, smiling at strangers can feel unusual or even suspicious. So people smile less in public. All these differences show that even emotions are cultural. There is no one correct way to feel or express yourself. When we understand this, we become more patient with others. We stop judging quickly and start asking, how does this work in your culture? This helps us build better relationships in international environments. I want to finish by talking about how to deal with cultural differences in real life and how to avoid problems when meeting people from other cultures. First, the most important thing is respect. Even if something feels strange or unusual, it does not mean it is wrong. It is just different. Respect means we accept that other people can live, think, and behave in another way. Second is observation. When you are in a new country or with people from a different culture, it is good to watch carefully. How do people greet each other?
How do they speak?
How do they behave in public? Observation helps you understand faster than rules in a book. Third is asking questions. If you are not sure about something, it is okay to ask. Most people like when you are interested in their culture. For example, you can say, "Is it normal here to do this?" Or, "How do people usually behave in this situation?" Now, I want to talk about a very important idea. Mistakes are normal. When you learn about culture, you will make mistakes. Maybe you will say something wrong or do something unusual. That is okay. The important thing is to learn from it and not feel afraid. Another useful skill is adaptation. It means you try to change your behavior depending on the situation. It does not mean you lose your identity. It just means you are flexible and open-minded. Let's also remember not to judge quickly. Sometimes we see something and think it is strange or even rude, but often we do not know the full cultural background. If we wait and learn more, we usually understand better. I also want to say something about global communication today. Now we travel more, study abroad, and work with international teams. Because of this, cultural differences are everywhere. English is often used as a common language, but culture is still very important behind the words. So learning about culture is not only interesting, it is also very useful for your future studies, work, and friendships. Finally, the most important message of this podcast is simple. Different is not bad. Different is just different. If we stay open, patient, and curious, we can connect with people from all over the world. Thank you very much for listening to this series. I hope it helped you understand cultural differences better.
Goodbye.
Leave a comment under this video and one of you will get 40 English lessons for free.